write them all for me.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our office. Call the roll.
Mr. Jewell?
Here.
Mrs. Lanehart?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Here.
And Mr. Moore? Here.
I'd like for everybody to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hook for the staff program.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell, members of the board. We have 4 of our new teachers here. I'm going to introduce each one of them, have them come up and say hello, and then get a nice picture with all 4 of you up here in front. The first one, in no particular order at all, but we do have 2 4th grade teachers. First one is Michelle Horton, math science over at Grigsby. Michelle, go ahead and make your way up. And Michelle comes to us by way of World of Wonder Pre-K through 6. It's in Dayton, Ohio, as well as being a graduate from Wright State University and a Raider. So go ahead and have a stance right up here and face out to the audience, and so we can see it. Andrea, a young lady from home here, from the Carlisle School District. She is her teaching partner. Andrea Hamlin teaches ELA and social studies, also in 4th grade, and another Raider. So we're glad that they are here, formerly taught in the Dayton Public School System. All right, let's see. Let's go with Kelsey Meyer. Kelsey is a Miami University grad, teaches special education at Alden Brown. And yes, she played volleyball at one time. You can kind of tell she's not, and not the back row. So she and we're excited for her to be here. So finally, our most recent hire is Matt Seljan. Matt comes to us from the Cleveland area. Make your way on down. A graduate of Bowling Green State University. So we're glad that he figured out that Cleveland wasn't the right place to be and Cincinnati area was. So we're going to try to convert him into a Bengal. Well, maybe not.
Not this year.
Not this year anyway. So this is our 4 new teachers, and we're excited that they're here with us. So thank you very much for coming. I want to give everybody go ahead, you can have a seat, and appreciate you taking time out of your day to come in, or evening, away from your family. So those are our new hires. With that, I do want to bring up Ken Sprinkles, kind of give you a little building update, and then we'll do a transportation quick update as well, just because it's the front end of the year and it's always a busy time for these guys. So
You just say quick, right? All right, we're back up and running. Had a couple of busy weeks getting going, but we're going and we're going strong. A couple things I'm trying to do here for the new building is I'm going to try to minimize some of our chemical uses. I know we're going to be a little limited on spacing, so I'm trying to get a little pricing factors coming in here and maybe minimize some of the. Everybody's got a favorite, right? But we got to make a favorite for everybody. So working on that right now. So that's about it.
Ken's been doing a lot. We've been doing a lot of work especially in the rushing towards the end here with the stadium and getting that. And both of these guys have been involved with that. It's
This is true.
just with the whole logistics of it right now. It's bear with us. We have to do it for another year, and we've got it down to north and south. If for anybody that needs to know, make sure you go to our website and you can see a diagram of how the flow of traffic and the different ways that you can access the stadium, because it is way different than a year ago. So again, it's during this construction time, and once we get that behind us, then we'll get back to hopefully a better scenario. So with that, I'm going to also bring up Chad for grounds and transportation. So that's always a fun time of year,
Yeah, it's
getting the
always a
kids
fun area
around.
to be in. How are you guys? School got off to a good start, I think, busing wise. It wasn't a great start, but it was a good start. Not too many headaches. We have some routing issues. You know, we have it every year. So those work themselves out over the first couple weeks of school, and times end up being more consistent. There's several people at the bus garage that do a great job, and if they watch these meetings, I don't think they will on TV, but Diane Rogers does a fantastic job, and I don't know if you guys know Diane, but she's been here for many years. And just a little example of what Diane does, she organizes all the kindergarten routes. So she sets down the first week of school, and they put their routes together, and she organizes all that stuff. Well, I called her on the radio, I think it was Friday of last week, and a guy had called and said, "Hey, my child's been kidnapped." Okay, we have several kidnapped kids throughout the year. They're not kidnapped, they didn't get off the bus. So I'm like, I don't know who this kid is. So I called Diane. I said, "Hey, do you know so-and-so?" And she's in the middle of her elementary route, and she stops. "Yeah, it's this kid. He lives here. He gets on here in the morning, gets off there in the afternoons." And I'm going, and the guy heard all that, and he was more comfortable sending his kindergartner to school. But that's just kind of stuff that gets done with some of the bus drivers that sometimes they're not very well thought of sometimes, but they do a fantastic job. As far as the outside stuff goes, you'll notice that the trees at the concession stand were removed and some gravel was put in. And if people don't know, that whole area was donated by the England family, I don't know, several years ago, in remembrance of their son Rich, who got killed down at Armco Steel, which is now AK Steel. So I had talked to Dick before we had taken the trees out, because one was dying, they were huge, and people couldn't see around them to sit there and eat. So I talked to Dick, we removed the trees, put some gravel in there. It looks pretty nice. I don't know if you've seen it, but it looks pretty nice. And then Dick's going to try to come up with some of those large stones to put like 3 or 4 there where those trees were. So something that's not going to grow, something that's not going to need maintenance, but something that's still going to look nice and people can be proud of. So the concession stand right now doesn't look good. It needs painted. We have the paint back there. It's just we've been so busy with other things. It just hasn't got done, but it should be done before Friday's game with the help of some of the bus drivers that are going to stay over after their morning routes and get that painted. So
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting. That's so stupid. The weather's been terrible these last 2 days. And the field, the varsity field, I don't know if you guys have looked at it, but it looks the best it's looked in several years. So, and it's just something those kids can be proud of to be on. But other than that, things are going pretty good. So if you've seen the grounds people out mowing grass, any of the bus drivers, tell them thanks, because those people do a great job. So that's it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chad. Yep. And they do, I'll echo that. We have really some unsung heroes on that. They don't get any recognition, and
We realized Saturday that we have to kind of rethink how we're doing our Pee-wee. You was here. It was
Logistics.
chaos, wasn't it?
It was chaos.
Trying to get handicap parking and getting the other people that's not handicap parking to come. They want to come up, then they want to turn around once they see it's handicap parking. Then you got a line of traffic. So we're going to try to rethink that for this next game.
we'll probably do a couple of things before Friday's game for varsity football, but Pee-wees that's another. I don't even know when. Sometimes you'll end up with the Pee-wee football going at the same time the soccer's
everything this
going,
weekend.
and what you probably didn't have, but you could still get a fall softball or a fall baseball thing add into it, a JV. So I mean,
Yeah.
anytime you can come, and there are plenty of places. It's just everybody wants to be up front, so that's the hard part right now. All right, super. That's concludes that portion. So
Well, at this time, we're going to, it's time for our visitors' comments. Do we have any visitors that wants to make a comment? If not, then I will turn it over to the treasurer report, Mr. Bassett.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Just a couple non-action items. I had sent some information out to everybody last week about Capitol Conference coming up November 10th through the 12th. It's time for me to register and needed to know from everybody if they were planning on going this year. So Bill's a yes,
Yeah.
and Dale? No pressure. If you want to find out for sure, you can let me know in the next day or two, but,
As of right now, I'm a yes.
okay. As of right now, I will register you for,
Okay.
okay. And then the next thing, just want to make sure you get it on your calendar. I'm not asking if anybody's going yet at this time, but our Southwest Region Fall Conference is at Great Oaks this year, and that's on Thursday, October the 10th. So if you want to check your calendars for that in the next week or so, I'll send out some information, a text or email or something, and ask who might be wanting to attend that so I can get the registrations in for that one. So I just wanted to make sure, time to register for Capitol Conference, but I wanted to make sure you got the other on your calendar, take a look at it, and I'll get back with you in a week or so to see who's going to attend that. So with that, I'll move on to my action items. First thing is I need approval for our minutes from our last regular scheduled board meeting, which was July 22nd, as well as the minutes from our special meeting from August the 7th.
Need a motion? First by Mrs. Langhart,
Second.
by Mr. Dunkman. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lanehart,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh,
Yes.
and Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Secondly, financial report is part of your packet. We're basically 1 month in, busy. You know, the startup of the year is a lot of ordering and a lot of payments and a lot of bills. But we're on track. The most important thing now is to get everything in and ready to go for our staff to be able to use it. But as far as the financial end of it, it's all been ordered, and I don't know if it's all been paid for yet, but checks in the mail. That's what I always say, checks in the mail. So with that, I just need an approval of the financial report for the month.
So moved.
First by Mrs. McIntosh,
Second.
second by Mrs. Langhart. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. McIntosh,
Yes.
Mrs. Lanehart,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
and Mr. Jewell.
Yes.
And then lastly, I need approval for a donation for the neediest kids of all.
Need a motion?
So moved.
First by Mrs. Langhart, second
Second.
by Mr. Dunkman. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lanehart,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's my
Thank
report
you.
for the month.
We'll turn it over to Mr. Hook for the
Uh,
superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell, members of the board. Real quick on the non-action items, just quick construction update. We found the rain again today, so we're gonna try it again Friday, and so I sent out a text to all of you, and so we'll do that again. I think you're gonna be shocked at how far this thing is. It is blowing up. I mean, in a good way, like up high skyward. So, so where are we exactly? You know, you've got the high school wing on the north end, you got the elementary wing on the south end, and in between is all of the common areas, administrative wings, your gymnasiums, your auditoriums. So, where we're sitting right now is they are finishing, well, they didn't do much today, but they're getting close to finishing the roof on the high school side, and will begin actually next, if not later this week. The rain may push them to next week. They'll actually start drywalling inside on the high school section. It's that far, yeah. So they are moving. The elementary wing is up. They have put in the hard deck steel on top. They're working on that, so the roofers will go from the high school, they'll go over to the elementary wing, and then they start working back inside. Most of the framing is done on the elementary side. I mean, it's going very quickly, and actually, if you look out the back of the high school or stand out there now, you're starting to see it come up in the middle. Now it's not looking like separate things, it's coming up and growing quickly. They're almost to rafter height for the gymnasium, which is really, when you stand up by it, it's up here. So they just stay ahead of the masons and keep those guys moving around, and it's pretty crazy. So very, very excited about the rate that they're going. And you'll hopefully, with the weather, if the weather stays as nice as it is, I think Friday we're expecting it to be nice for the game. We'll meet down there and give you a tour and let you see just how much difference there is. It's pretty significant. So very excited about what's going on there. With that, we'll move into my action items. And first, under action items B1, under general business, I need approval for items A through C. Those trips are out of state, and so by board policy, we do those. A and B, those are at no cost to the district. Those are fundraised monies or donated monies. So I need approval for that. Obviously, the third one is declaring transportation impractical to transport. That's a normal function that we do every year at this time.
Need a motion.
So moved.
First by Mrs. Langhart,
Second.
by Mrs. McIntosh. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Langhart?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Item B2, need approval for item A, administrative employment. This is just renewing his contract for our athletic director.
Need a motion.
So moved.
First by Mr. Moore,
Second.
by Mrs. Langhart. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Langhart?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Yes.
Item B3, I need the approval for the classified resignations A and B listed below.
Need a motion.
So moved.
First by Mr. Dunkman,
Second.
by Mrs. McIntosh. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
And Mrs. Langhart?
Yes.
Excuse me. Item B4, under classified employment, I need approval for items A through D as listed.
Need a motion.
So moved.
First by Mrs. Langhart,
Second.
by Mr. Moore. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Langhart?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Item B5, under supplemental resignations, I need approval for items A through C as listed.
Need a motion.
So moved.
First by Mrs. Langhart,
Second.
by Mr. Dunkman. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Langhart?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Yes.
And Mr. Moore?
Yes.
My last item, items B6, under supplemental employments, I need approval for items A through H.
Need a motion.
So moved.
First by Mrs. Langhart,
Second.
by Mrs. McIntosh. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Langhart?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And that concludes my section.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything going on? State?
Nothing of value to add from the state.
I think they're still on recess for a little bit left.
That goes from January 1st to December 31st, right?
I'm not saying anything about how long it is. It's shortly after Labor Day they get back that way.
Anything going on in the CTC?
The CTC met on August 13th and at 7 p.m. and it was in regular session.
Any old business? Any new business? I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Mrs. Lainhart,
Second.
by Mr. Dunkman. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Lainhart?
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Time is 6:20.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.